Hello and welcome to our viewers here in Nigeria and all around the world. Yes, what is coming up on the program? At least 26 people are killed and 11 others missing following flash floods and landslides in the Indonesian island of Sumatra. Plus, on the program, Sudan's military rejects Ramadan ceasefire, says certain conditions are yet to be fulfilled. The world today starts right now. The bodies of 5 missing skiers have been found dead in the Swiss Alps. Now, according to the police, a search and rescue operation is underway for a sixth person who's still missing. The group who was on a sky tour went missing over the weekend near the 3,706 meters high Tête Blanche mountain. Authorities noted that the skiers were all Swiss nationals and range in age from 21 to 58 years old. An Australian teenager has pleaded guilty to the murder of a British mother who was allegedly stabbed at her home 2 years ago. 41-year-old Emma Lovell was reportedly engaged in a knife fight when confronting 2 intruders in Brisbane on Boxing Day of 2022. Her daughters and husband were also injured in that attack. The unidentified teenage boys who broke into her home were each charged with 4 offenses. In the Brisbane Supreme Court, the boy who allegedly used the knife and the incident pleaded guilty to burglary, committing a malicious act and assault occasioning bodily harm for stabbing Mr. Lovell. He was also remanded in custody and will be sentenced in May. And people in Haiti are again fleeing refugee camps to find shelter inside and around government buildings as heavy clashes between the army and gang continues. Armed gangs have stepped up attacks on public facilities in an attempt to expand their control. People fled to the surroundings of the National Palace and a public park, Champs de Mars, to seek temporary safety as the police fought back to drive the criminals away. But the armed gangs attacked the National Palace and set part of the Interior Ministry on fire with petrol bombs. Burnt down vehicles, bullet shells on the ground and bullet marks on windows of the Ministry of the Interior could be seen in the city. And locals were also seen going to a refugee camp around the ministry building. Some of them found shelter inside the building. Last week, the government extended the state of emergency until April 3rd and nighttime curfew until March 11th. It followed a local armed gang storm of the 2 largest prisons located in Port-au-Prince. Prime Minister Ariel Henry remains in neighboring Dominican Republic, where he had fled after his plane was refused permission to land. And at least 26 people have been killed and 11 others missing after flash floods and landslides hit the Indonesian island of Sumatra. Rescue operation is ongoing as more bodies have been recovered. Officials are warning the casualty count could rise as the waters recede following flash floods and landslides caused by torrential rains in the region. At least 14 houses were buried in the landslides and more than 37,000 homes submerged in the west of the province. The flooding also submerged 9 districts and cities. Late on Friday, a large mudslide caused a river to breach its banks and tear through mountainside villages in the district. According to the National Disaster Management Agency, relief efforts have been hampered by power outages, damaged bridges, and roads blocked by thick mud and debris. Now, the center-right Democratic Alliance, AD, has declared victory in the parliamentary elections in Lisbon, ending the Socialist Party's 8 years of power. Now, Alliance supporters watched live exit polls updates and celebrating AD's victory announcement. Supporters can also be seen waving flags and chanting as the coalition leaders greeted the crowd and delivered their speeches. Democratic Alliance reportedly received 29.5% of the vote, securing 79 seats in the Assembly of the Republic. This puts the alliance only 2 seats ahead of the Socialist Party on 28.7%, although the conservative right-wing Shega Party came in third with 18.1% of the vote. And back here in the continent, presidential candidates in Senegal have kicked off their election campaigns following weeks of violent protests across the African country after the vote was delayed. The 19 approved candidates vying for the top job now have a shorter period to rally supporters ahead of the March 24 election. The post is expected to be the most tightly contested race since Senegal gained independence more than 6 decades ago. The former mayor of Dakar, Khalifa Sall, who is running for the 4th time, organized a marching caravan through the streets of the capital to begin his campaign. The front runners will likely be former Prime Minister Amadou Ba as the ruling party's choice and imprisoned Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who stepped in for opposition leader Ousmane Sonko, also in prison and who has been barred from running. The only woman candidate is Anta Babacar Ngom, the head of Sedima, one of the country's biggest food companies. President Macky Sall is prevented from running because of term limits in the country. Staying with stories from the continent, Chad's Prime Minister Success Masra has announced he will run for president ahead of elections scheduled for May. His announcement comes a week after the leader of the junta, interim President Mohamed Dabi announced his own candidacy. Mr. Masra is a former opposition leader and was appointed Prime Minister by the junta. He later signed a reconciliation deal with Mr. Dabi after his return from exile before he was appointed in January. He told supporters at a rally on Sunday that he's seeking the top seat so as to unite the people and heal heart. Mr. Dabi's main rival, opposition leader Yaya Dillo, was killed in a shootout with security forces in February after government blamed him for a deadly attack on the country's security agency, which he denied. He was widely predicted to be the main opponent of Mr. Dabi in the election. Let's take you to Sudan, where representatives of the military says there would be no ceasefire during the Ramadan period, except certain conditions are met. Amid the escalating tensions, General Yasser al-Attar, representing the country's military, says there will be no ceasefire except the RSF withdraws from civilian and public spaces. Analysts say this declaration underscores the entrenched conflict between Sudan's armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces, revealing the complexity of the nation's political landscape. The military's condition was predicated on a commitment forged during mediated talks in Jeddah last year, May. The conflict between the army and the RSF erupted in mid-April 2023, sparked by disagreements over the trajectory of Sudan's transition to civilian rule. And since then, the fighting has exerted a heavy toll on the country. And earlier, my colleague Layo Olarinde spoke with the VOA's Mohammed Yusuf on recent developments in that country. Take a look.
Ramadan begins probably for some Muslims Monday, or for some even tomorrow. There was a lot of hope that there will be rival groups, the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces. There was a lot of hope for that. That's why last week on Friday there was that resolution, and it was passed, and that was something that was supposed to be given feedback by the both sides. But the central government, of course, which is now the Sudan armed forces, have rejected that, and of course they have set some conditions, and that means by them rejecting a ceasefire, it means that the war is going to continue even after as the month of Ramadan begins.
Like you've mentioned, the military has rejected the ceasefire during this period, asking for the RSF to withdraw. Have we heard any comment from Dagalo's camp?
The RSF is yet to respond to that comment made by the Sudan's armed forces, but the comment, of course, will be statements, but as we speak, there are many parts of the country that the war is going on, and they will respond, of course, and the Hameti, the leader of RSF, has been on a diplomatic term in many countries in Africa, and there's some assumptions or expectations that his group is going to be more diplomatic. But that being said, situation doesn't change, and no one is willing to accept any negotiations or any call for ceasefire, and that means more deaths, more suffering, of course, for the Sudanese civilians.
Indeed, and it's a terrible one for the civilians. How are the people faring, even, as the fasting period begins?
That the humanitarian situation is very dire. Even before the war, Sudan as a country, its population has been suffering. There are millions of people displaced, and as we all know that as war goes on, of course we know in the Indian Ocean, at the Red Sea, there's a lot of activities there, and a conflict particularly coming from the Houthis in Yemen, and that we know that some humanitarian organizations like IRC, the International Rescue Committee, is going to the route that is going to use to provide that humanitarian assistance, and that means the longer time, and that means more problems for people. If it was taking 2 weeks, that's going to take a month. And as month of Ramadan begins and humanitarians cannot reach those people, it's going to be more problem, more suffering for people. As we also know that in the part of the sea, now there's a lot of chaos and a lot of problems on that side, which is also complicating for the problems. Of course, we know that humanitarian aid has not been reaching quick.
Welcome back. The UN Security Council has adopted a resolution calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities in Sudan during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The resolution was adopted with 13 votes in favor and 2 abstentions from China and Russian Federation. After the vote, British Ambassador James Kariuki and US Ambassador Robert Wood urged the warring parties to find a sustainable resolution to the conflict and also ensure removal of obstructions to the provision of critical humanitarian assistance.
We urge the Sudanese Armed Forces and Rapid Support Forces to act on this united international call for peace and to silence the guns. We further urge the warring parties to build trust and seek a sustainable resolution to the conflict through dialogue.
It is important this Council has spoken with one voice to condemn the violence, demand a ceasefire, and call on the parties to ensure removal of obstructions to the provision of critical humanitarian assistance. We acknowledge this week's announcement that the Sudanese government has agreed to one cross-border access route by land from northern Chad and access by air, but this is insufficient. Addressing the dire humanitarian needs of all Sudanese requires unhindered cross-line and cross-border access from multiple points of entry to the most devastated areas of Sudan.
And the Botswana Wildfire Producers Association has expressed discontent against the United Kingdom's hunting trophies imports prohibition bill. The bill tabled in the UK's Parliament in 2022 seeks to prohibit the import of hunting trophies into the UK. And speaking at a media briefing in Gaborone, the Minister of Environment and Tourism, Dumezweni Mthukulu, says the proposed bill will have a negative impact on communities dependent on income of management of hunting in Africa. Our South Africa correspondent Innocent Semosa reports from Botswana.
The tourism sector is a significant contributor to Botswana's economy, accounting for a substantial portion of the country's GDP. However, the sector is facing some challenges. The Botswana Wildlife Producers Association alleges that former President Ian Khama is at the center of the United Kingdom's hunting trophies import prohibition bill. Government says the motive behind Khama's involvement remains unclear.
So I can't come out here and call out the motive of a former president. Why? But I told you. Remember I said he is involved in the tourism industry. He has a vested interest in the tourism industry, which is not consumptive. You understand? So I called upon you to go and find out from him, because now you know I've given you facts. Find out, seek an interview with them. Find out from him why.
The trophy hunting industry brings in approximately it has been estimated between 20 and 30 million US dollars per annum. And that is very significant revenue that if we lose it, or if the country loses it, and if communities lose that revenue, they will then be foregoing their opportunities to benefit from this wildlife.
I had the privilege to meet with the representatives from the Hunters Association of Botswana to hear their perspective on wildlife conservation and tourism.
Climate change it's a major one. Most of the animals move as a result of looking for grazing and looking for water. Currently, we are in a drought here, so we certainly most of the watering points, which normally dry up in June, July, are currently dry. So it's a big challenge.
The government of Botswana is calling on the United Kingdom to consult communities on the ground who directly benefit from trophy hunting. Currently, Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, Zimbabwe and Zambia highly benefit from trophy hunting. Attempt to get comment from former President Ian Khama was indeed unsuccessful. From Maung, Botswana, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
And let's begin to wind down the program, everyone. It was a night of surprise wins and pleasant moments at the Dolby Theatre venue of the 2024 Oscars. The headline, Oppenheimer swept the highest number of awards. The 2023 epic biographical drama film written, directed and produced by Christopher Nolan took home 7 Oscars after being nominated in 13 categories, including the biggest wins of the night: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor in a Leading Role, and Best Actor in a Supporting Role. The film offered a nuanced portrayal of the race to create the first atomic bomb. The scientist who spearheaded that process, R. Robert Oppenheimer. It was also a night of first for actress Divine Joy Randolph, who won her first Oscar after being a favorite for her work in The Holdovers. She delivered a powerful speech about her realizing that she is good enough as an actor. Emma Stone was one of the favorites in the Best Actress category. She beat out other frontrunners to clinch her second win as Best Actress at the Oscars. And a galaxy not so far away, Prop Store is auctioning drops from some of Hollywood's most renowned TV and film franchises at the Peterson Museum in Los Angeles, transporting cinephiles into the hearts of their favorite cinematic universes through the world's largest film and TV memorabilia auction collection. Extravagant movie pro collections, including Triple Max and costumes from Star Wars, The Terminator, and I Love You, Lucy. Costumes as well as Peter Fonda's restored motorcycle from Easy Rider were all on display. In case you missed this one, Prop Store's next auction is set to be held in LA from March 12 to 18 and will include over 1,600 items for bidding.
So PropStar has over 1,700 items, including Anthony Daniels' personal collection from Star Wars, as well as a number of items from Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, as well as other favorites from the 70s, all the way to the golden age of film. The top item in this auction is Anthony Daniels' personal C-3PO helmet that he wore in Return of the Jedi. That's estimated at $500,000 to $1 million. We have an Indiana Jones stunt jacket from the second Indiana Jones movie. That's estimated at $200,000 to $400,000. We also have the Easy Rider motorcycle. This is the crash bike, and this has been fully restored, comes with Peter Fonda's signature. That's $200,000 to $400,000 as well. Because of the unique nature of Hollywood memorabilia and the fact that there aren't that many, it actually becomes very collectible over time.
And finally on the program, bring out the elephants. The 50 decorated ones that paraded through the streets of Paripala, Kerala in India. They were marking the Paripali, the Jamela, the annual Hindu pageants of the Kidomotil Sri Grafil Temple. And participants led and rode the animals, while others drummed and threw confetti and danced. The occasion drew crowds who came to witness the spectacle. Popular belief in India is that the elephant is considered a holy animal, symbolizing the deity of Ganesha. It is offered gifts to grant prosperity and good luck. And what a fantastic display of culture and arts. That's the program, everyone. On behalf of the team and everyone here, thanks indeed for watching. I am Kelly Egiga. Bye now.